All right, so we got the Comet ready to start doing some shakedown runs. Let me bring you in here and I'll show you what we did to get it ready to put on the road. One of the things we had to do was get the seat back in it. And as tatty as it is, it's not in too bad a shape. The upholstery's still on it and it still sits pretty decent. So we got her bolted back in place. And one of the other things you got to have, at least a few tail lights. So we've got tail lights and brake lights. Well, and in order to get brake lights, I had to have a bracket. So I came up with that little bracket. It's off something we discarded at work. Brought it home because I thought I might be able to use it to make something to mount my switch. Well, as you can see, it needs a little bit of tweaking so that I can get it to directly line up with that pedal, but it does work. And got to do a little bit of modification to it, but it's going to be just fine. And I didn't have to drill, weld, or cut anything but one hole to mount the switch. And just used a couple of hose clamps to hold it to the steering column, and just like that, got a brake light switch mounted. Alright, so I recorded the road test portion of this video earlier. So when we get back from the road test, we'll talk about what we found, what the problems are, and where we're going from here. All right, so one of the first things I noticed when we hit the road with this car, and I started getting up a little bit of speed, and I got up to around 50 miles an hour, and started noticing that the rear end is either the rear end roaring, or I have a bad axle bearing or something. But I've got something going on in the differential on this car, making a little bit of noise. I have another one in here that I bought out of the junkyard, sitting on the shop floor. Doesn't appear to be anything wrong with it, so should be just a even swap out with minimal effort, and be able to get that figured out. So the rear end shouldn't be any kind of problem at all. Like I said, I've got another one. I got all the pieces and parts to put another differential in. That's not a big deal. Now the transmission, when I first took off, you can hear it not shifting. Pulled up to the stop sign, pulled out on the road, pulled it down into gear, made sure that I was in drive, and took off. And then the transmission acted like it was going to shift, and it did actually shift on its own a few times. But what I noticed is when I would pull up to a stop, it didn't want to downshift back into second or back into first gear. It's staying either hung in either third or second gear. So what I figured out was I can manually pull it all the way with the column shift, pull it all the way down into low, takes off, shift into second, shift into third. Transmission shifts and feels fine. It's just not doing it on its own. So when I got back earlier on the road test, I text my transmission man, and he's going to be getting with me tomorrow. We're probably going to have to pull the valve body out of this C4 and see what's wrong with it. This is not an uncommon problem for a C4. When they're right, they're great. When they're not, they're a pain in the butt. Well, this one's trying to be a pain in the butt, so we'll get it figured out. The brakes, the more I used them, the better they got. No, they're not power brakes, and you got to use a little more leg strength, and just something you got to get used to. But they stop, and I'm pretty happy with the way they're reacting. The suspension, when we went down some bumpy roads, and shocks are done. You can look in the tops of the shocks down through in the front, and you can see where the seals are blown out, and they're squirting oil out of the top of them. So it's going to have a set of shocks. I'm probably going to go ahead and replace the control arms. I own them. They're in a box in there. It's just a matter of tearing the suspension down to get to it to do it. I'm looking at putting some air shocks in the back so that it'll keep the rear end up if I have to put a little weight in the back of the car, carrying enough stuff to fix this thing if it breaks down on the road. And what else? What other problems did I run into? That's about it for right now. That's as far as problems. It is trying to run a little warm, but I have to keep in mind I have no coolant in it. It's running straight water at the moment, and I am also not running a thermostat. And that both of those problems can cause you to have overheating issues. And I'm not talking majorly. It just got up around 210, 215, and it wouldn't take a whole lot more, and it would be over 220. And I really don't want to go there. So we got some stuff to sort out. So while we're getting those parts coming and getting that stuff sorted out, why don't you go watch another video coming on the screen right now?